Great. Hello, everybody. I was going to say good morning, but it's not morning for everybody, so good day. My name is Michelle Darrell. Not only am I the Military Family Services Coordinator here in Vandenberg, California, but on the side, I have a blog and sort of a brand that talks a lot about motivational conversation, building ourselves up, and really just living into our values. And my blog is Mom Day Motivation. So that's sort of what I'm presenting from that platform today. So I have a hair in my face. So when I'm coming to the table today, I'm coming as myself as a military spouse and as just a woman in 2020 trying to live her best life. And so just a little bit of background on where I'm coming at this from in terms of my lens is that I like to find ways to live into my values, to be motivated by who I am and who I want to be in the best version of myself. And I think that as a community of women and people, we can do better in terms of our self-talk, and we can do better in terms of our support of those around us. So, which I think is a message that's important at a time like now. But today we're going to be talking about mindset and motivation and how they're intertwined, how we can use our mind's eye and how we're feeling in our mind to propel our motivation, to ramp up our motivation, and to reinvigorate it. So if you want to just move the slide for me, Joanna, I think or I can do it. I have the ball. My bad. All right. I was telling Joanna at the start today, my brain is like all over the map, so bear with me, everybody. This is just a brief outline of what we're going to be talking about today. Essentially, this is our introduction. What I wanted to mention also is I love when people use the chat feature. So if you are using the chat feature to throw out a question or a comment, I would like to be able to share those aloud. If you'd prefer that I don't, I can do so without your name, or I can chat back to you during the session. Just let me know if you're good with me, if you're not good with me reading it aloud. Because I feel like part of the great conversation in WebEx comes from those chats, and I will be asking a few questions along the way for green checks and red X's as well. We're going to talk a bit about growth mindset, and we are going to talk about our why we want to do the things we do, why we want to be motivated, why we want to look at our mindset. We're going to talk about a gratitude attitude, which is something I talk about a lot. Those who know me hear me use gratitude a lot as a form of coping, as a form of keeping my self-talk in check, and just how it's changed my life by practicing gratitude. We're going to talk about our personal visions and values, and we're going to maybe set ourselves up to do a 7-day challenge to keep the ball rolling after this session. If anybody has any questions about what we're talking about today, let me know in the chat and I will check those as we go. So first things first, I think it's important to start where you are. So this is a ideology, I guess, that I heard in another group that I was participating in. I did a personal development session that I attended a few months back, and one of the things that kept coming up was, don't keep wishing. I'm going to start when, I'm going to start when I lose 10 pounds. I'm going to start when I move. How many times have we said that as military spouses? I'm just going to start when we get to the next place. I'm going to start when my kids are bigger. I'm going to start when my spouse isn't as busy. If we keep waiting for then we may not get there. So I think it's really important that if you have a goal and you have a vision for where you want to be and what you want to do or what you're trying to accomplish, start where you are now. What do you have that can help start that process? So you can start where you are, but you have to be prepared to grow. You can't start where you are and end where you are. We were having a conversation earlier about sort of, you know, if I had the energy I had 15 years ago, I could get it done, or I don't have the time anymore. I don't have the get up and go anymore. But you do. We just have to reframe it. We have to shift our mindset from thinking I can't, because that's really scary language when we think about it, to I can. There may be challenges, but I can. So the first thing that is important to think about is the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So in a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point, so starting where you are. But this view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment, and that definition comes from Dweck. So I think it's really important to flip the script back to when you believed you could do anything. And ironically, we were having this conversation as we logged on today, and you know, we really do come from a place when we're born, when we're kids, when we're young, and we believe we can do anything. And we really can. Now, you know, can I be a doctor? Well, there are a lot of things in my ability that might hold me back from being a doctor, but can I be aware of health and more aware of my health and wellness? Absolutely. Can I be a doctor? Possibly. I could go back to school and see if that's a possibility in my repertoire. Do I have the time? Is that my want? But I could do anything. And so we sort of lose that along the way as we move through life, as things start to feel like they hold us back, as we have hit failures and successes, and as we get pigeonholed by ourselves into thinking that this is my path, this is where I'm at, this is my you know, ultimate kind of thing that's left out for me to say, it's a hand I've been given, so I'm going to roll with it. But really, even though you're dealt a hand, doesn't mean you're not in control of how you play it. So I want you to think about that. Start where you are and think about how you can grow your mindset. Can I get everybody to give me a green check or a red X if you have or have not heard about growth versus fixed mindset? I think we probably all have. But I just want to see. Yeah, so growth mindset and fixed mindset are things that right down to my second grader, they're learning and hearing about at school. I know that a lot of the curriculum here in my child's school has been based around teaching growth mindset. We are our own worst critics. We find it difficult to challenge ourselves sometimes, but that's the way we've always done something is one we hear a lot. But I've always, you know, gained and lost 15 pounds at Christmas. So that must be what I do. And I think, yes, I think there's a message here in the chat. You know, we do need to hear about growth and fixed mindsets all the time to remind us not to get stagnant, but to keep, you know, pushing that envelope, pushing that door forward to say, hey, I want to open you up to see what world is in front of me. And it's really not about having all the answers with what you've got. It's about understanding that we can develop our thoughts and abilities. And one of my favorite speakers, Rachel Hollis, which is actually one of her sessions is where I got this sort of start where you are mentality, is really about anything that you want to begin to learn more about, just start by Googling it. And that's not to be facetious, but if you want to learn more about gardening, the first thing I'm going to do is either Siri, how do I start a garden? Alexa, give me information on gardening. Or I'm going to type in to Google, easy peasy gardening for newbies. Pinterest, yes, all of these places. Everything that you want to learn about, you can start in those basic things by doing a quick Google search at home. Now, I want to be a doctor. You could Google that for sure. There's a lot more to it than that, but you see what I'm saying, that it's just a starting point. Even just having the ideology in your head and that frame of mind, that mindset that says, I can develop this skill, is the first crucial step in challenging a fixed mindset or to continue to grow your mindset in a growth mindset capacity. So I have a few questions that I want to ask, and if you'd like to answer aloud, just raise your hand. So if you know how to do that, that's just next to your green check there in the little boxes below the participant panel. So what are ways that you demonstrate growth mindset? Let's say one way today that you may have demonstrated a growth mindset. Anybody want to share? Yeah, go ahead.
So I have always said I'm terrible at learning foreign languages, but I miss speaking Spanish. I learned it as I was growing up.
Yeah.
So this week I started Rosetta Stone for Spanish, and I start every day saying, before I start by saying, I can learn a second language. Just to like change my mindset,
right.
Because I had the opposite for too long.
I love the idea of starting your day with a positive mantra or affirmation. I think it's really important to start by telling yourself you can. And it seems really silly at first, the first time you look in the mirror and, say aloud your mantra or your motivational moment to yourself. But one of the things that a lot of people might struggle with could be body image. And when people think about motivation, often they go right to a place of being healthy or fit or, very goal-oriented things. And so I think to myself, as a mom of girls and as a woman in society who wants to change the dialogue on body image, one of the things that I say to myself aloud every day is, you are beautiful. And I do mean partially the vanity piece of it, but I also mean I have a beautiful heart. I have, it comes with a lot of other, moments there that beauty isn't just about the physical. It's about how we present ourselves to the world and how we give ourselves the credit for who we are. So I think when we're thinking about growth mindset, it really starts with picking something each day to remind ourselves, that we can be more and that we are more. Yeah, I love that. Find that passion that makes you jump out of bed in the morning. Absolutely. What's going to, kick you in the pants to motivate you forward? But start where you are. So I want you all to think about it. You don't have to share if you don't want. Feel free to raise your hand if you do want to. But I want you to think about one thing right now that if you were to go on Google right at this moment to say, Google, how do I do this better? What is it that you want to do better? Is it, I want to be healthier. I want to learn to paint. I want to have more patience. I want to whatever. So just take a minute and think about that one thing. I'm not saying that you have to leave here with that thing and make it your life's work, but I just want you to think about something. Now, if I use the example of I want to grow my followers on Instagram for my blog platform, one thing that I might tell myself in a fixed mindset would be that, well, I haven't had much success doing that, so maybe I'm not very good at it, and maybe it's not the platform for me because I don't have 100,000 followers right now, so I should just, put it to the side and do it later. But in a growth mindset, I would say, okay, I'm dedicated to this. If that's really what I want to do, my next thing I'm going to Google is how do I, organically grow followers on Instagram? How do I become an influencer? How do I push my blog to have better SEO, which is, Google return kind of thing. So all of those answers could be out there for me at the click of a button. They may not all be perfect. They may not all work for me, but it's a place to start. Start where you're at. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. Does anybody have any questions about growth mindset or things that they wanted to share? Because I think it's important to surround yourself with people who have a similar passion for growth mindset or want to have a growth mindset, because if you're consistently surrounding yourself with people in a fixed mindset, it's like being a smoker who wants to quit, but you're stuck in a room full of people who keep smoking, in my opinion. Yeah, Beth, did you want to share?
Yeah, Michelle, so I did this, I guess 2 years ago. I said, I want to do this, and what do I need to do this? And for me, I want to start my own consulting business. So I tried to figure out everything I need to do to get myself to that end point, and it started with education and going back to school. And it actually, the idea presented itself by meeting Dale at one of our conferences. And meeting Dale, she actually kind of lit a spark for me. So I think when you talk about growth and growth mindset, sometimes you'll meet somebody and they light a spark in you, and that then propels you to say, hey, I can do this, or yeah.
Or maybe you read a book, or maybe you hear a lyric of a song, or you watch something on television that says, oh my gosh, you know, that really speaks to me. Why does that speak to me? You know, and I think you're right. I think sometimes it's finding that little bit of spark and recognizing it, because starting where you are doesn't mean today Google, what should I do to be better? But it's something that has to come within you. It's something that you have to want to pursue. And I think that finding motivation to pursue those things can be challenging if you don't start to really figure out what you want. So that's sort of the next step. So knowing that you can and starting where you are and with what you have is important. And then finding out why. So what's your why? So there's a story behind why I'm sharing this sort of concept about what's your why. A few years ago, actually quite a while ago now, when I had my oldest daughter, Ava, I was very overweight and had you know, some challenges pregnancy-wise, and was having a hard time even walking at that point because my body just was like, enough is enough. And when I had Ava, I realized that, you know, not only did I want to be better for me, but my why at the moment was her. I wanted to be a good role model. I wanted to be healthier, to be around longer. I wanted to be motivated to show her what it was like to have an active lifestyle and to be vibrant and confident. And so in the initial phases of my journey to get healthier, my why was her. What grew from that was how my why became about me. You know, the things that I then unlocked that I could do more of put me back into a part of the priority list of my life. So I think when we have to think about our why to get motivated, it really is because it's what sets us apart from everybody else. It's the purpose behind doing something, and it's what inspires you to take action. So raise your hand or give me a green check if you feel like when you're inspired, it's easier to be motivated. Yeah, I'm seeing a few green checks there. So by inspired, I just mean it's that thing that makes you smile, gives you the little butterflies in your belly to say, this feels good. This is where I want to be moving forward. I got energy from doing that particular thing. So I think when we're talking about finding motivation, taking action, and changing our mindset, really stripping that back to the why will help us lay a good foundation of how. Does that make sense? So one of the things about like finding your why is really looking at your history. What are the areas in my life that I find inspiration? What challenges me to want to do more? So for instance, let's use the last example there. You want to start a new career path. So you met somebody who sparks that interest in you, And maybe that inspiration or sparked interest is what propels you. The why you want to do that will now push you further. That will develop your motivation. So I'm wondering, you know, Beth, if you wanted to share with us maybe the why. Why were you seeking to, you know, follow that pursuit?
Michelle, for me personally, I have always had a passion for people and organizations and how they functioned, and being in management before in my past, and seeing, for me, it was seeing organizations struggling and always wanting to help, always wanting to fix, and never being in the position to do that.
Right.
So my passion is to get myself to the point where I can then take my experiences that I've gained in my life. I'm 50 years old, and I do have some, you know, really good insights, and I just shared my age, which is scary. But
very brave of you.
Just like you're sharing your passion with us, and I want to do the same thing, but for me it's impact, having an impact to be able to do good in the world outside of myself.
That's perfect. So that's kind of your why, leaving the impact, leaving your mark, sharing your experience. I love that, because the why in that, for me, there was lots of inspiration in that statement. There was lots of you know, want in that statement, but I think when you really pull it back and you got to that, I want to do that because I want to have an impact and give back to others, that's your why. And so I think it's easy to sometimes talk around what we want to do, but until we find why we're doing it, we don't have a foundation to build from. So, okay, you know, you can think about just that statement, I want to leave my mark and have an impact. It's my why. You could do that. I'm closing my eyes as I'm really thinking about it. I must look a little bit crazy for those of you who can see me on camera. But the why is what it's going to grow from. So if you have, I want to be impactful as your why and leave a positive imprint on, you know, on this thing, then the how is going to be that more specific genre of what you're offering, right? So in this case, it would be, I'm going to take my lessons learned and my life experience, couple that with education, and move that forward. So does that make sense when we're talking about why? Just give me a green check if you're following along. Welcome, Barb. I know you just came on here. So yeah, so I think it's really important to find the why. And that little bit of foundational work that you do there will help propel you further along. So defining your why is an activity that I think is really important and can kind of be broken up into a couple of things. You know, in what areas of my life am I most motivated to succeed, and what challenges my motivation? Because I think we need to look all around it before we can really get to the depths of it. All right. The next part of it that I want to talk about is reframing. It's kind of going back to the growth mindset. So now you've got this mindset of I can do what I want to do because I know that I can grow and cultivate my knowledge to propel me forward, and I know why I want to do that. So now that you know that you can, start where you are, know that you can do it, know why you want to do it. You're still going to be challenged. You're still going to be, there's still going to be times when you have all of these tools in your toolbox, but you're still going to start to lose your motivation, and your mindset's going to start to shift to a place of, but can I really? And have I made any strides forward? And I think that one of the things we can do is, in that moment, is to practice gratitude for what we've done. So if we're looking at this as like a step-by-step process, I'm a dreamer, and I'm a big picture thinker. I know some of my folks on here are more what is that word? They're more methodical, thank you, brain for kicking in, more methodical in how they do things and like to have structure and more finite detail. So if I was looking at this as a step-by-step process, I want to know, A, that I can do these things, that I have the capability to do so. I want to know why I'm doing them as my foundation to move forward. So I have the tools now to start with, and I'm starting to look into it. So I'm starting to take some courses. I'm starting to see some traction, but I'm starting to feel frustrated that it's not going fast enough, or it's not exactly, that first course I took wasn't exactly where I wanted to go, or that first social media post that I made that was super vulnerable kind of fell flat. Whatever that might be that you're looking into. Having a practice of gratitude in your life and in your day is a really great way to cultivate a mindset that is positive and sparked by growth. So I say that because, as an example, feel free to give me a green check if you have found the past 3 months since we've been in pandemic challenging to your mental health. I'm going to be the first to put up my green check because I found it very challenging. There we go. Yeah. So something like that, for instance, is something we can't control, and feeling out of control in a time when we're trying to cultivate motivation and a dream potentially can be really frustrating. So I think in those moments it's about reframing. Okay, so let's think about this. I was just about to launch a partnership with an organization, let's say, to take the next step in my dream to achieve my goal. But, now we're in lockdown and quarantine. And so in those moments, it can be really challenging. Well, why am I doing this anyway? All of that, negativity can start to creep in. And if we go back to our old verbiage that we tell ourselves, I knew I couldn't make this happen. Those things can start to creep up. So using gratitude to promote your motivation will also help to keep you grounded in positivity and growth. So reframing our thoughts can lead to higher productivity and consistency in reaching our goals. I think that we have all been given lots of times in our life when it's given us positive self-talk and a positive script that we can say to ourselves because we've gotten praise from somewhere. So let's take this example. Let's see. Okay, so maybe I shared a piece of writing with my friend Brenda, who's also a writer, and she gave me positive feedback with constructive criticism, but generally speaking, I felt great about what she had to say. That propels me forward. Then I post it, it doesn't get much traction, and it falls flat, so I go back to my old script of, see, I'm no good at it. If I reframe it to say, well, I was so grateful for the opportunity to have a friend and a colleague in this area, give me positive and constructive critique. While it fell flat this time, I can build on it in this way. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have posted that to this particular forum, or I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my experience here online today. I'm grateful for, quarantine because I have more time to be at home with my family instead of I'm grateful, that I can go to work and, get out of the house for 10 minutes, whatever it looks like. So I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but I think we have to just reframe our thoughts and self-talk back to a place of positivity. I just noticed in the chat, yeah, Joanna and I were chatting before we started today about the word yearn and what we yearn for, and I think it's important because the things that we yearn for aren't always known to us, and they're not always in our immediate grasp. But maybe they're lurking around, and if we're that sounds creepy, but if we're thinking about gratitude, one of the things in this session that I was thinking about as I was doing was how grateful I am for the opportunity to present today to those of you who are on. And it's a nice platform to be able to practice my public speaking, to practice this presentation and that kind of thing. And maybe I wouldn't have had or taken this opportunity in the beautiful weather in June if it weren't for sort of being in this new place of virtual programming taking a leap forward because of COVID. So although, it's a challenging time, if we're reframing our thoughts and looking for places to find our yearning, they can be there underneath it all. So I know that was a really convoluted way to talk about gratitude and a lot of words, but I think happiness comes from the little things. And when we're happy in our mindset, happiness being defined broadly, it's really about that propels us forward. So what does practicing gratitude look like in your day? It's going to be different for everybody. Give me a green check if you already have a gratitude practice that you follow. All right, we got a couple green checks. So practicing gratitude can be as simple as saying it aloud. It can be as simple as, right now, loud and proud, I am so grateful to be on here with all of you today, because if nothing else, if you get nothing from what I say, if you get nothing else from this conversation that is new to you, you took a few moments to be here, and I'm grateful to be here with you, because it's nice to be surrounded by folks who have a similar mindset. That's gratitude. I just said it out loud. Check. In the box. Done. I might have a journal that I practice gratitude in. I might write it on a napkin in the middle of my, Starbucks in my car, whatever, when something strikes you as grateful. Some people practice gratitude in the morning to start their day. Some people practice it in the evening to recap their day. Whatever it looks like for you, I would say, if you don't already practice gratitude faithfully and often, to try to do that, because it can really impact growth mindset. The way that it can do that will vary depending on what you're trying to achieve. But if you're looking for positive, you will create and feel positive. And you will find the light and the essence of what you're trying to fulfill. It's like when you buy a new car. Anybody ever buy a car and be like, I've never seen that color blue before in a car? That's my car. You drive it off the lot, and next thing you know, you see 15 other cars in that color. I feel like gratitude is like that. Gratitude is like that blue car you never saw before until you bought it, now you see it everywhere. It's contagious almost. It can grow and spiral into something so awesome, and then you're excited to see it everywhere. Now, maybe you don't want to see the same color blue in your blue car everywhere, but at least now you're noticing it. And that's the other thing about gratitude. If we're not even trying to notice it, we're never going to see it. So all of that plays back into finding the growth mindset and really playing into it so it can further our motivation. I want you to think about something you're grateful for right now. Just think about it in your head. It can be super simple. It can be super complicated. But take this moment. I'm going to be quiet for about 15 seconds, and I want you to really think about, even write it down if you have a pen or pencil near you. Start the sentence with, I am grateful for. And there you go. You've taken that moment. You've practiced gratitude. It's easy. Some days it's more difficult. However, if you get in the habit of doing this, you will find that your list of, let's say, 3 that you start with, I'm going to say I'm grateful for 3 things every day, soon becomes 5 things, 10 things. Some days maybe it's hard to get even 1 thing, but you'll find it. So even one of the things that I like to do is I like to start my day with gratitude and end my day with gratitude. So when I wake up in the morning, I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for from the last 24 hours. It could be, that I'm grateful that my husband wasn't snoring and keeping me up all night. It could be that I'm grateful that I can smell the coffee brewing downstairs, or that my kids went to bed nicely. And then before bed, I try to find one thing that really wraps up the challenging parts of my day. So let's say that between that work-life balance piece of things were challenging in that particular day, I look for a way to find a moment of gratitude in the chaos, specifically about that day. And that can be hard, but it really makes you reflect on your day, and then it gives you a foundation to move forward with a good attitude for the next day. Does anybody have any other ways that they practice gratitude that they wanted to share either in the chat or aloud with the group? That might be helpful. It's okay if you don't, but just thought I'd put the ask out there. You can raise your hand or type it. Yeah, so just take some time to think about it. And practicing gratitude can look different for everybody and is a very personal practice. So that's important to note as well. So I think it's really important when you want to be motivated towards something, of course, I said start where you are. And one of the things that we need to do is really reflect, take a look at ourselves and reflect on who we are and what we value. So there are a variety of assessments, online values assessments. Those of you who know me know my love of Brene Brown. She's got a great one on her website that's free that you can do that's a values assessment. I'm working on one called Values and Vision that would give people a way to quickly evaluate their values, come up with their top 3, and how those are intertwined between themselves personally, their crew, so it could be their home life if they're talking about home values, could be their friendships as well, or their work life, and anything else that influences them, and then gives them a top 3 values. But I think knowing what we want to lead with is the first real step in moving forward towards being motivated. So our goals and intentions are best set by aligning our vision with our values. So one of the things that I always say after I've taken any values, sort of activity underhand, I always say that authenticity is always in my top 2, if not my top 1, whether it's work or life in general. And so when I think about authenticity as my primary value, I think, how does that affect my motivation, and how does that affect who I am and how I do things? Does everybody know, or can everybody think of something that is one of their values that they lead with? Feel free to share one of yours in the chat, or however you like. Some of them might be courage, independence, consistency, collaboration, family, loyalty, innovation, dependability. All of these words and visions and values are important to know and understand internally, because if you know that that's what you value and that's what you need, it's easier to go after what you want in a way that is both satisfying and motivating. So for instance, I'm seeing lots of folks with independence, respect, openness. I mentioned mine was authenticity. Some of you might have loyalty or humor. And so if you're going to be motivated, you're going to be more likely to be motivated if you can lead with your values and you are surrounded by opportunities that adhere to those values. Compassion, empathy, impact, and giving back, those are great. So let's take this one for instance. Let's take respect. And so if you're working toward a goal, and let's say that goal, and this person didn't say that this was their goal, but let's say that goal is fitness and wellness related, and respect is one of your primary values, and you're like, okay, my goal right now is that I know that I am capable of starting where I am today and reaching my health and fitness goals. Okay, so you started where you are, you're open to a growth mindset, and you're going to lead with the value of respect. So not only are you going to look for opportunities to reach that goal from a respectful place, so you're going to need to respect yourself and your boundaries and your abilities, and you're going to need to respect your thoughts, because in a fitness and health journey, we can be our own worst critics and our worst enemies, but you're going to need to do it in a respectful environment. And when you surround yourself by folks who are respectful of not only that you're on a journey, that you're working hard toward that, and that it's a priority, but they're also attending to you with the respect that, when you reach your milestones, they're cheering for you, and that when you're struggling, they're helping you up. So knowing that respect is important in that case will really help you on the difficult days. I hope that is a clear example of what I mean by leading and knowing your values to help guide you forward and propel you to be motivated. So let's say, the journey is to lose 20 pounds, okay? And you get about halfway through your journey and you're really like turning your self-talk around and you're practicing your gratitude. I'm grateful for the gym finally reopening. I'm grateful for working out at home. I'm grateful for a partner who supports me, when I'm eating that salad and I really want French fries, whatever that might look like. But then all of a sudden that, kooky cousin of yours, posts on your latest, selfie on Facebook, oh geez, looks like that, a fitness journey isn't really working out with you or out for you or something. That's totally out of your values. It's totally stepping on everything that you believe in. Not only is it deflating you, but it's completely disrespectful, and that's your primary value. So you have a choice at that moment to say, how do I let this impact me? Will I be knocked down and come full stop in my journey to stay motivated, or will I use this and find a way to, move forward? But knowing that respect is something that's important to you will help you make those decisions on how you choose to keep motivation in those moments. So, we will find haters along the way in any journey that we do, whether it's health and fitness, whether it's education or business. And I agree, the comment in the chat is sometimes you need to clear out your friends list to keep your values and keep motivated. 100%. Sometimes we need to do an assessment of our community. And I'm not just talking, so your kid ticks you off or your husband ticks you off, you're not going to kick them to the curb right away, or your wife or whoever, but maybe in that moment that person isn't really, they don't need to be in that primary circle of people that knows your journey. Yeah, take a support survey. I love that. Survey the folks around you. Survey your community. And by your community, I mean who you interact with. How does it serve you? How does it fit in your values? How does it help you stay in a growth mindset that's propelling you forward to motivation and reaching those goals? I mean, it's this continuum of bits and pieces that is really the only way you can reach those goals that you set for yourself, is having those moments of clarity where you need to maybe set some boundaries, where you need to reframe your focus, refine your focus. Maybe if that really derailed you, that comment from your kooky cousin on Facebook, maybe you need to go back and look at your why. Why am I doing this? Oh yeah, I'm doing this because I want to be my best me, because I want to run a half marathon, because we want to, have less joint pain, or we want to be on less medication, using that particular example. So I think it's really important to go back to that why and really root ourselves in that foundation. It's hard in our communities, whether they're our social media communities, our physical communities, our family communities, our extended family. Not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to get you, and that's okay. So that's where you need to go with that. Start where you are and be okay with growing who you are and what you're capable of. And it's really not about, what others think of you can't influence you so much that it derails you. If you're not doing anything harmful or whatever to those people or your community, and you're just trying to better yourself in a positive way, there's always going to be people out there to want to bring you down a notch, but that's not about you, that's about them. So I think you need to really look from within, look at those visions and values, and align those goals and priorities with a growth mindset to sit with who you are, and that will help keep you motivated. It seems like a lot of steps, and it seems like a lot to think about, but the more that you really lead with those values, the more confident you become in doing that, and the more capable you realize you are. So again, flipping that script, I am capable, I am enough. Because I dream or yearn for this, I can do that. It's like anything. The more you tell yourself that thing, the more it becomes your reality. So the more we tell ourselves the negative, the more that becomes our reality. The more we flip the switch on it, the more it becomes easier. Yeah, literally just the same thing being typed in the chat here. The more you practice your values, gratitude, growth mindset, positive thoughts and words, etc., the easier it becomes. It's a practice. That doesn't mean it has to be perfect. My favorite mantra ever, and one that I have to repeat to myself often and frequently, is progress, not perfection. Oh my word, for the amount of times I've had to tell myself that if I had $1 for every time, I'd be a bazillionaire. But because we are hard on ourselves and we are challenged by our communities and our society in a variety of ways that impact us negatively, but it's about making progress, and that progress will also propel your motivation. So I think it's really important to root yourself in the why of why you want to accomplish something, but also knowing that your values are aligned with that, because if they're not, you're never going to accomplish that. You're never going to get to that thing you want to accomplish. If your value is, optimism, but it's always being struck down by negativity, and then you allow that negativity to take over, you got to go back to the why and try to think about how it's going to align with you. Is this something that needs to fit there, or do I need to look towards something else? So knowing your values is important. There's a ton of assessments online. Like I said, I think it's really important to check in with yourself regularly. I don't mean weekly, but now and then, to just remind yourself where your values lie. And as you develop and learn and grow and have experiences along the way, your values probably won't change entirely, but maybe they'll shift in terms of where they sit on, let's say, your top 3 or your top 5. I didn't realize, I probably would have said that compassion was was my lead value for a long time, especially in my 20s and 30s. But really, I think authenticity would have always been there. I just wasn't courageous or brave enough to be my authentic self. So the more I became confident in my own skin and in my own ability, the more obvious authenticity became as my core or primary value. So really take the time to do that. Like I said, Brené Brown, her vision, her values practice or worksheet is really great. And I think it's a good one to start with, or even just looking at values and writing down 20 that sit with you, and then from those 20 start looking at the next, picking 10 of those and why they speak to you, and really going back to that. Somebody just mentioned the book, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. It is one of my favorites, and it really speaks volumes to that concept of why imperfections are gifts, and how we can grow and learn and live in those beautifully. So that's what I wanted to say about vision and values. So there's some work as we start to wrap up today in this hour-long session. And somebody just said they've been reading it over and over again, The Gifts of Imperfection, and somebody said they just ordered it and they're about to read it. Okay, for those who have read it and want to chat more on it, reach out to me. Would love to hear your thoughts on that later. So here's the work. So in an hour-long session, we can't get really deep into things. I feel like I've thrown a lot of ideologies and random thoughts at you, because that's how my brain operates. But really the work comes down to giving yourself sort of this idea of like a 7-day challenge to get yourself started. One of the things that I've been working on with my blog and social media through Mom Day Motivation is I'm working on a workbook and things to start a a working group or a course, sorry, not a working group, but a group that works together on this course that I'm trying to develop. So the one thing that I've been working on is a 7-day exercise. So in an after session email, I'm going to send all of you the 7-day exercise so that you can look at that. Send me your feedback if you found it helpful, what you found helpful about it, what you didn't, or don't do it at all, completely up to you. But if you're really looking to get started on something, I think this is a good place to start. So I'll read through quickly the 7 days, what they might look like, and then you'll have that tool in an after session so that you can hold yourself accountable to trying this out if you'd like. So I think it's important to start day 1 by defining and tracking one personal goal that you have. So taking all those things we just talked about into consideration, it can be one goal, big or small, just for you, not for your family, not for your workplace, but one goal just for you, and really define it and track it. So by tracking it, I mean just writing it down. When we write something down, it makes it more real. I know that sounds silly, but it's like putting an accountability out there into the universe. So I want you to write and define one personal goal. You can be as specific as you'd like. SMART goals are important ways to look at things. But really, I want you to get to the meat and potatoes of how and why you want to do this, okay? So just to pick that goal and define it on day 1. Take that day in your gratitude practice to think about that goal and things that, have started to appear in your mind's eye around that goal for that day as you're practicing gratitude. On the second day, I want you to define some daily tasks that you can do to start to reach that goal and complete them. So say for instance, I want to increase my followers on Instagram by 150 individual followers by the end of July. So I'm going to define, a few daily tasks I can do, and then I'm going to check them off that I've done them. And I want you to do that from day 2 forward for the rest of the week as well. On day 3, I want you to think about habits. So, a habit that helps you and a habit that hinders you, or habits that are new and old, and how they're impacting you reaching that goal. It's just bringing some self-awareness to that. On the 4th day, which is kind of like your midweek, I want you to check in with yourself and give a realistic assessment of where you stand. Now, you may not accomplish this goal in 7 days, obviously, but you can get some traction. If your goal is to lose 100 pounds, 7 days is not enough. If your goal is to have a 6-figure business, 7 days is not enough, but it's a starting place. It's starting where you're at. So at that middle of the week, I want you to check in with yourself. Be realistic in your assessment. I've done nothing to help myself towards my goal. Maybe it's I've practiced gratitude and that's helping me get my head in the right place to start my goal. Maybe it's I've made 3 phone calls this week to get myself on a course to help me get to the point where I can maybe start my own business in the next year. So realistic assessment. Day 5, reach outward and find your people. So using the example of wanting to maybe take on a new career path, do some networking, local area business networks. Maybe it's people who are in that particular business. Maybe it's that person you had a conversation with who sparked your passion for that idea that you're cultivating. Maybe it's fitness related. Reach out to those friends of yours or not quite good friends of yours who are fitness motivated and say, hey, I think I'm starting this journey and I'd love to have some accountability partners, or I'd love to have some information. What have you got? When people are successful in their goals and they're living into their values, they want to share their successes. Kind of like Beth was saying, when you've had the experience, many of us want to make an impact by passing that along. So reach out and find your people. And then in that day 5 on your little worksheet, write down who you reached out to and how it helped you. If it didn't help you, maybe it wasn't the right conversation. Maybe it's not the right people. On day 6, I want you to create a mantra. Why do I want you to create a mantra on day 6 and not day 1? Because by day 6, you would have thought about this for a few days in a row now, and I think you'll have a good feeling and be more comfortable in your own skin of knowing what this goal really is or how you're going to really be motivated. And I want you to take that mantra, I want you to write it in, your 7-day exercise sheet, but then I want you to write it somewhere else, maybe in multiple places, maybe in lipstick on your bathroom mirror, or in a Sharpie, or not Sharpie, like a dry erase marker, on a notepad in your office, put it on the fridge, wherever it suits you. But take this mantra and start to cultivate the feeling of what it means to you. Say it out loud, write it down, share it with somebody you trust who has a similar mindset. If you don't have anybody in your realm of people who can hear that and know what it's about, reach out to me. I will do that. I would love to do that with you and for you. On the 7th day, I want you to do the 3 R's. I want you to recognize your accomplishments for the week. I want you to reward yourself somehow, and I want you to reinforce them. So if, for instance, you have made 3 phone calls, you've got your mantra, you've been saying it to yourself now 2 days in a row, you feel confident in where you're moving forward and you feel comfortable in your values, I want you to recognize that. Write down. Maybe that's part of your gratitude practice that day. The next thing I want you to do is reward yourself. I don't mean go drop $100 on a new outfit, but maybe if you have now made a phone call that week that says, I want to network and socially distance, have a meeting with this person at the local park, maybe you do want a new shirt to give you that confidence boost to have that conversation. Maybe you reward yourself with a new day planner because you're going to have lots to do if you're really going to make this thing happen. Maybe you reward yourself with a nice glass of wine because it's been a long week and it didn't go the way you expected, or it did. Whatever that looks like for you. A box of donuts, a book that is about your, about the mindset that you're trying to be in. And reinforce this by starting, the same process again the next week in a similar way. The only way we can accomplish things and stay motivated is to continue to grow and build on those things that we value the most. Knowing your why, knowing your values, and having a mindset that says, yes, I can, rather than says, but we've always done it this way and I don't think I can, or I can't. If you don't reinforce that after 7 days, it's like, well, what was the bother? They say it takes like 21 days to create a new habit. It takes a heck of a lot longer to disregard or to eliminate bad habits or old habits. So I would say if you reinforce this by making new habits, those old thoughts and old mindset, fixed mindset moments will start to become less and less, and you will see cultivated motivation. Your motivation will radiate into more things that you do and more goals that you haven't set for yourself. So I will be sending that out via Joanna to you all who participated, and you can choose to do that. If you do choose to do that and you want to give me any feedback or check in with me through the week that you do it or at the end of it, please feel free to do so. And then this is just some ways that you can learn more about what I have to say about being motivated and being a mom and a woman by following me on social media or reading my blog at momdaymotivation.com. So I'll open you can open up your mics and the chat for any questions, comments, and I think otherwise we'll be all set. Okay.